Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea's inflation in 2023 remained high, climbing on year by 3.6%, driven by soaring utility prices after energy price hikes and higher food costs due to poor weather. The United States says it has no hostile intent toward Pyongyang, following North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's recent call to speed up war preparations to counter what the regime calls confrontations by the U.S. From all BTS members releasing solo albums to South Korea hosting the League of Legends World Championship for the first time in 5 years, we take a look back at the year 2023, filled with the biggest cultural news. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with South Korea's inflation continuing to ride high this year. The country's consumer prices rose by 3.6% in 2023 compared to the year earlier. But there are signs of easing in the year ahead, with the inflation seeing a steady decline in the recent months. Our Lee Soo-jin leads us off.
South Korea's consumers were hit with higher prices this year. Data from Statistics Korea on Friday shows that in 2023, consumer prices, a key gauge of inflation, rose 3.6% compared to the previous year. While the increase was less than that of 2022, when consumer prices grew at the fastest pace in more than 2 decades following the outbreak of war in Ukraine, it was still high compared to before the COVID-19 pandemic, when consumer prices rose less than 1% in 2019 and in the 1% to 2% range from 2016 to 2018. Statistics Korea mostly attributed the high prices this year to soaring energy prices and unstable weather patterns. Electricity, gas, and water prices jumped a whopping 20% compared to a year earlier on electricity and gas rate hikes, the largest rise on record. Prices of agriculture and fisheries products also rose by 3.1% this year, mostly due to the high prices of fruits from the poor weather seen in the summer and fall. The stats agency, however, emphasized that other sectors saw an easing of price pressures.
With the exception of electricity, gas, and water prices, overall the rising consumer prices greatly slowed compared to 2022, and this was mainly due to the drop in oil prices compared to last year.
Industrial products were up 2.6%, and prices in the service sector rose by more than 3% this year. For the month of December, the on-year rise in consumer prices was similar to that of the previous month, going up 3.2%. That's the 5th consecutive month that consumer prices saw an on-year increase of more than 3%. The Bank of Korea on Friday said that while inflation is expected to show signs of easing in the new year, the central bank will maintain a tight policy until the rise in consumer prices slows to its target rate of 2%. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's national tax revenue from January to November this year was around 324 trillion won, which is about 251 billion US dollars, according to the Finance Ministry. It's a decline of $38 billion on year. But the ministry reported a narrowing gap in tax revenue for the same period compared to last year's. This is attributed to a consistent increase in national tax revenue for 2 consecutive months starting from October. In November alone, the country witnessed a boost in tax collections amounting to an additional $0.7 billion. It was primarily due to higher corporate and income tax revenues, marking the first monthly rise in 2023. As of November, this year's total tax revenue accounts for 81% of the annual target. In other news, starting next year, foreign workers with E9 non-professional employment visas will be allowed to work at hotels and other types of accommodation businesses in South Korea. The government made this decision during a meeting of the Foreign Workers Policy Committee on Friday, expanding the industries available to E9 visa holders. This comes in response to the increasing labor shortages in the hospitality industry. Under the decision, hotels and other accommodation businesses in Seoul, Busan, Gangwon-do Province, and Jeju Island plan to pilot the hiring of foreign workers as cleaners and kitchen assistants next year. Now, shifting gears, the United States says it has no hostile intent toward Pyongyang following North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's recent call to speed up war preparations to counter what the regime calls confrontations by the U.S. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
The U.S. has made it clear that it has no hostile intent toward Pyongyang and remains committed to diplomacy. This is according to Yonhap News Agency on Friday in its Q&A with a U.S. State Department spokesperson. The official stressed that the U.S. seeks dialogue with Pyongyang without preconditions, even as the North has launched an unprecedented number of ballistic missiles. The U.S. official's comment comes after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made orders on Wednesday to beef up the regime's war preparations. According to the North State-run Korean Central News Agency, during the year-end plenary session of the Central Committee of the North's ruling Workers' Party, Kim set forth the tasks to, quote, further accelerate war preparations, saying the U.S. is engaged in unprecedented acts of confrontation against the regime. Meanwhile, a U.S. expert on North Korea reiterated that Washington must shift its policy focus from denuclearization to arms control and reduction. Young-suk Lee, a former deputy assistant director of the Korea Mission Center at the CIA, recently wrote on the Foreign Policy Research Institute's website that the first step to this process is to, quote, politically accept North Korea's de facto status as a nuclear weapons state. Meanwhile, the South Korean National Intelligence Service said North Korea is highly likely to engage in provocative actions at the beginning of the year ahead of South Korea's general election in April and the U.S. presidential election in November. In a press release on Thursday, the NIS vowed to make efforts to establish early warning and preparedness systems with relevant ministries. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
South Korea's defense chief says North Korea's light water reactor at Yongbyon is unlikely to be used to produce plutonium, a key fuel for nuclear weapons. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, Defense Minister Shin Won-sik noted that Seoul detected an outflow of water from the reactor's cooling system last summer. Shin cast doubt on the IAEA's recent assumption that the reactor could be used to produce plutonium. The minister instead added that light water reactors are generally used for electricity generation. He estimated that the reactor would be in full operation next summer. Meanwhile, in North Korea, Kim Jong-un has reportedly urged for innovation in the production of school supplies such as bags, as well as uniforms and shoes. According to the regime's state-run media on this Friday, the remarks were made during Thursday's session of a key policy meeting that began earlier this week. Kim has called for a stronger sense of responsibility from North Korea's light industry with regard to the production of necessities for students. Pundits believe the latest calls for youth welfare seeks to create an image of a caring leader. The session also reviewed next year's budget, which will reportedly be confirmed by the regime's parliament on January 15th. South Korea's Army Special Warfare Command is starting the new year with cold weather training. The Army said on Friday that troops began training on December 27th at Hwangbyongsan Training Ground in Daegwallyeong, Gangwon-do Province. It'll continue until January 5th, with the Army looking to enhance special operation capabilities on snow-covered terrain through simulated battles between friendly and opposing forces. Soldiers will also traverse Daegwallyeong for 14 hours in sub-zero temperatures of minus 25 degrees Celsius while carrying 30 kilograms of military gear. Last month, Arirang TV launched its first AI anchor, Ari. Now she has a preview of what to look forward to in 2024 in Korean society and what significant events are in store worldwide.
Good evening. I am Arirang News AI anchor, Ari. Next year, the South Korean government plans more support for young people, seniors, and the disabled. We begin with the new policies for young people. A new youth transportation card will be introduced, providing a 30% reimbursement on transportation expenses every month. To try and increase the low birth rate, the government will provide more support for newlyweds and those with newborn children. The property acquisition tax will be reduced for newlyweds, or couples with newborns buying a new house. And families with multiple children won't have to pay vehicle acquisition tax when buying a new car. Another change is that from next year, hospitals should register all births. This is because previously, when parents had to report the births themselves, there were cases where the biological parents intentionally did not register their child's birth. As South Korea's population ages, the government plans to provide more support to seniors and the disabled. The country will create over 140,000 jobs for seniors and increase the pension by 7%. The number of low-income households that get livelihood subsidies will also be expanded, so that households up to 32% of the median income will be eligible for subsidies. And 24-hour at-home care will be provided to those with severe disabilities. For public safety, new license holders will be required to learn about autonomous vehicles in preparation for the era of self-driving cars. Also, to enhance safety, low-risk firearms for police officers are being distributed to all officers. Previously, just 1 in 3 officers had such firearms. To tackle recent drug issues, the government will run a 24-hour drug hotline and establish 17 rehabilitation centers throughout the country. Plenty of big events are happening in 2024. The Gangwon 2024 Winter Youth Olympic Games will kick off in January. South Korea will be the first Asian country to host the Winter Youth Olympics. And in April, the 22nd Korean general election will take place. Can the current opposition party keep hold of the National Assembly? Or can the ruling party gain a majority in parliament? Also, next year we'll see several key elections around the world. In March, Russia will hold its presidential election, and the United States has its presidential election in November. Meanwhile, in Paris this July, athletes will compete in the 2024 Olympics. This year, there have been many conflicts worldwide, such as the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia and the conflict between Israel and the Hamas militant group, with no apparent resolution in sight. Let's hope for peace in the new year. Not much time left until the new year. Hope all of you have a joyful end to 2023.
Moving on, the interim chief of the ruling People Power Party, Han Dong-hoon, met with the main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung on Friday. During this meeting, both leaders emphasized the importance of prioritizing their shared commitments to serving the people over differing interests. Friday's meeting came a day after the opposition-controlled parliament unilaterally passed 2 special probe bills, including one to investigate First Lady Kim Gun-hee. Earlier that day, Han also met with Kim Jin-pyo, the Speaker of the National Assembly. There, the PPP Chairman reiterated his dedication to fostering a spirit of dialogue and compromise, recognizing the importance of these qualities during challenging times. More concerns of human rights violations have been raised in Gaza amid the spread of footage online of at least 2 Palestinian boys stripped and detained by Israeli soldiers in a football field. Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
A video has surfaced on social media showing Palestinian men and at least 2 children detained and stripped by the Israeli military in a stadium in northern Gaza. The video appears to show two young boys stripped down to their underwear, walking and holding both their hands up as the Israel Defense Forces soldiers give instructions. Later in the video, it also shows adult male detainees stripped down to their underwear, sitting on the ground with their hands tied to their backs, some blindfolded, while soldiers inspect them. While Israel has not commented directly on the video, it has said in the past that it has stripped detainees to ensure they were not carrying explosives. The IDF has detained hundreds of men and boys in recent weeks. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu canceled a war cabinet meeting set to be held Thursday evening to discuss Israel's plans for who will govern Gaza after the armed conflict. The announcement also comes as Israel's far-right religious Zionism party said it was holding its own faction meeting to protest its exclusion from the post-war discussions. Netanyahu has previously argued against the Palestinian Authority taking control of Gaza after the armed conflict. Conflict continues on the border between Israel and Lebanon as the Israeli military on Thursday shelled Hezbollah infrastructure using aircraft and tanks. This was a response to Hezbollah's attack the previous day on the northern part of Israel, bordering Lebanon, using rockets and drones. Since the armed conflict began in October, it's estimated that about 150 Hezbollah militants have been killed in Lebanon. The Iran-backed militant group vowed to double its attacks if Israel continues to escalate the conflict. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says he has addressed with Pope Francis plans to put out into practice a peace formula to end the violence in Ukraine amid Russian invasion. According to President Zelenskyy, the peace formula includes over 80 countries at a representative level, and more nations are poised to join. He first proposed the 10-point peace plan during the G20 summit in Indonesia back in November. During talks on Thursday, President Zelenskyy also thanked the Pope for his Christmas greeting to Ukraine and his message for peace. Meanwhile, in his New Year's message earlier on Thursday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres voiced hopes for unity, pointing out that 2023 had been a year of enormous suffering, violence, and climate chaos. He added wars were growing in frequency and ferocity, while trust was in short supply. He went on to assert that pointing fingers and pointing guns lead nowhere, and instead urged for efforts to rebuild trust and restore hope. He also pledged the UN's role in achieving this broader goal. The global population is expected to surpass 8 billion on the first day of the new year. Data released by the U.S. Census Bureau on Thursday local time show that the world population in 2023 rose by 75 million people, with the growth rate just under 1%. The Bureau projects that on January 1st, there'll be 4.3 births and 2 deaths worldwide every second, resulting in overall population exceeding 8 billion. The year 2024 is just around the corner. Wrapping up 2023, our culture correspondent Song Yu-jin reflects on some of the year's biggest cultural moments.
As we say goodbye to 2023 and hello to 2024, these are some of the top cultural moments of the last 12 months. Beginning with K-pop, BTS stole the show just like any other year. All members have now released solo albums which top music charts overseas like the US Billboard and UK official charts. The boys also celebrated their 10th anniversary in June. All 7 members are now in the military, with RM, V, Jimin, and Jungkook having started their service this month. 2023 was also a year of girl power. Blackpink headlined the Coachella Music Festival in April. New Jeans became the K-pop act to win a Billboard Music Award the quickest, topping both the Billboard main single and album charts within a year of their debut. But experts say what really stood out in K-pop this year was exporting its training system.
JYP Entertainment teamed up with Sony Music Japan and created the Japanese girl group Niju. Before, the strategy was to include 1 or 2 non-Korean members in each K-pop group to appeal to the global market. The trend now is creating K-pop style groups tailored to the culture and preferences of the local audience, sometimes without any Korean members.
HYBE also partnered with US-based Geffen Records for the global audition program, the debut Dream Academy. The resulting 6-member group Cat's Eye will likely debut next year. But it wasn't the brightest year for Korean cinema. Just 2 films managed to break the 10 million mark at the Korean box office, the 3rd installment of the Roundup series and 12/12 The Day. The rise of short-form videos has been pointed to as the cause.
People now search for quick summaries of movies on YouTube or watch bits of them when they have time. If a movie doesn't have a tightly woven, immersive plot, mind-blowing special effects, or a sound system that you can't replicate at home, theaters are going to find it challenging to lure back the audiences they've lost.
However, the small screen had its big moment. The Netflix original The Glory was the 3rd most watched title on the streamer during the first half of this year, with a total viewing time of 622.8 million hours. In the realm of the arts, baritone Kim Tae-han became the first Asian male singer to win the Queen Elizabeth competition. Universal Ballet Company's Kang Mi-sun was named Best Female Dancer at the Benoit de la Danse, known as the Oscars of Dance. In the world of sports, esports received great spotlight, with Korea winning 2 golds at the inaugural event at the Hangzhou Asian Games. The country also hosted the League of Legends World Championship for the first time in 5 years. That's all for 2023, but here's to more cultural journeys in the new year. 송유진, Arirang News.
2024 is the year of the Blue Dragon, signifying abundance and peace. Our Uni takes a closer look at its significance.
As 2024 marks the year of the Blue Dragon, the National Folk Museum of Korea is hosting a special exhibition exploring the symbolism and ancient practices surrounding the mythical creature. Each year is represented by one of the 12 animals of the zodiac, with 2024 being represented by a dragon. Over the course of 60 years, each zodiac animal appears 5 times, each time with a different color, with 2024 being blue. Representing immense power and royalty, the dragon symbol was reserved for kings during the Joseon dynasty. In Korean mythology, the dragon is often represented as the god of water or the god of rain, and bringing good fortune. The Folk Museum's exhibition displays the profound influence the dragon has held in the past, especially for farmers. Featuring a drawing of a dragon is the farmer's flag, representing a farmer's music band. The oration for rain-making ritual was performed during droughts in the 1950s. It involved prayers for rain by honoring the dragon as a god. Wishing or hoping for something is a timeless tradition, and with 2024 approaching, people are making wishes for the upcoming new year.
Our New Year's wish is that our moving houses goes smoothly for us next year.
Looking for a new job. It's always a struggle, but together we can stick it through and figure out what the next step will be.
It's almost for every year we wish for our family healthy and our business to be prosper, son to be very healthy and good, behave. Yes.
In the year of the Blue Dragon, it is said that the energy of a soaring dragon in the sky brings about a seamless resolution to all issues. Hopefully we'll see that happen in 2024. Iun-hee, Arirang News.
Find us is a problem instead of cold at the end of this year. It has been 5 days already of high find us levels. This is expected to be resolved tomorrow with rain or snow falling across the country. The area in Midwestern regions, Jeollanam-Bukdo and Gyeongsang-Bukdo provinces will still be dusty until it snows tomorrow.
In particular, heavy snow is expected in the central region. By the day after tomorrow, the last day of this year, more than 20 centimeters of snow is expected in the mountainous areas of Gangwon-do province, up to 7 centimeters in eastern Gyeonggi-do province, and 1 to 5 in Seoul. Snow and rain will mostly stop on Sunday morning, but the Chungcheong-do and Jeollado provinces will continue to have snow and rain forecasts until the evening. The last Saturday of this year will start off at 0 degrees in Seoul. Daily highs will be topping out at 4 degrees in Seoul, Gyeongju and Busan 11 degrees Celsius. No major cold is in forecast on New Year's weekend, exceeding the usual temperatures. The last sunset is expected at around 5:23 p.m. As for the first sunrise of the new year, 7:47 is what's predicted. Sending you warm wishes for a happy new year. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for this newscast this year. Thank you for watching. And next year, in 2024, we'll continue to deliver the most up-to-date news every day. Best wishes for everyone for a wonderful year ahead. Good night.